Hi, girl.
Where's our name tags?
Mike's off.
We'll start 1 minute
We're
early.
supposed to have name cards too.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Dennis Britton. I'm on the board of the Signal Multimedia Company, and I've been asked to be the moderator today. I have a journalism background. I was the editor-in-chief of the Chicago Sun-Times, the editor of the Denver Post, and for a quarter of a century I worked for the Los Angeles Times. I was the Washington editor during Watergate. I was the international editor, the business and economics editor. But I have also a history here. We've heard some concerns that the new ownership isn't from here. And that's almost literally the truth. Russ Briley has been here for 30 years. Chuck's lived over the mountain most of his life. And for me, my great uncle, Francisco Lopez, was here. And Francisco, one afternoon, was sitting up against an oak tree in Clarita Canyon. And he was going to fix his lunch. So he reached over and pulled out some wild onions. And on the bottom of Uncle Francisco's wild onions were gold nuggets. So gold was discovered here by my uncle. And that was in 1842. The other connection is that my great-grandfather, Hieronimo Lopez, and his wife Catalina have the famous Lopez adobe in the town of San Fernando, which was an overland stage stop when he did it. My great-grandfather started the first elementary school in the San Fernando Valley. And my connection with it, he started the first newspaper in San Fernando. It was called the San Fernando Times. I told them that they should have sued the Chandlers for stealing the name, but they didn't care. One housekeeping thing, the restrooms, there's a white arrow in the back of the room. The ladies use the geraniums on the right. No, just follow the arrows. I don't know exactly where they go, but that's where the arrows are. So welcome. Our candidates are sitting in alphabetical order, and we will begin in an alphabetical order, and we will end in a reverse alphabetical order. Got to put this down just a bit. Here's the format. It's a 90-minute debate or discussion. Each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes to make an opening statement. Then the questioners will take over. All candidates will answer each question, and the questioner or the moderator will be allowed a quick follow-up question to one or all, and you will have 1 minute to answer each question. And 1 minute isn't a whole lot. So maybe you want to give highlights in your 1 minute answer, but I will stop you in 1 minute unless you're saying something that is just so devastatingly interesting that we have to go on. You know that probably won't happen. The timekeeper is seated right there, and he will give you the signals for 30 seconds left, 10 seconds left, and then the stop signal. At the end of the program, each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes to make a closing statement or anything you want to say. If there's something that has not been addressed during the session, feel free to use the 3 minutes for that. We'll give you the time. Our intention, however, is to end exactly on time at 7:30. Candidates have any questions? All right. I'd like to introduce our panel. Jason Schaff is the vice president and editor of The Signal. He's been here a long time. Many of you know him. He's a veteran journalist. He is committed to the Santa Clarita Valley. He is committed to making a difference. And we're very proud that he is doing it. Next to him is Krista Daly. She is the government and politics reporter. She is new here. She lives here. Introduce yourself to her. She'd love your help in becoming as knowledgeable about governments and politics that you can. And next to her is the editor of one of the best publications in Southern California, the Santa Clarita Business Journal. If you're not getting it, get it. It is one of the best publication I have seen of its kind in the country, and I've seen a lot of them. And Jana Atkins is its editor. They will be asking the questions. We will start with Jason.
What specifically will you do to make sure the CEMEX mine does not operate in the Santa
Can
Clarita
you
Valley?
not hear that? Opening statement.
Oh.
It's my fault. Thank you very much. Let's do it.
Good
Brian,
job,
you're first.
guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, The Signal, for putting this event. Hello, can you hear this?
No, it's not very long.
Can you hear this?
Can we have help with the microphones?
Testing.
Better.
Testing, testing.
Try Steve's.
Testing?
I'll do all the talking.
How do you spell fat chance? Some of you are okay with that. The rest of us, maybe not.
Hello, testing.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to The Signal for putting this event on. My name is Brian Caforio, and these events are wonderful as they give the public an opportunity to hear from the candidates and see whose values best align with you as you head in to make an informed decision in June and November. I'm a Southern California native, born and raised. Both of my parents are public school teachers. They're actually here today. Thank you for coming up. Jim and Judy Caforio. My mom was a special education teacher in 3rd and 4th grade. My dad was a high school English teacher. And they taught me at a very young age the value of hard work and the benefit of good public education. So it was ingrained in me at a very early age how important it is, how critical it is that we fully fund public education to make sure that all of our children have an opportunity to get ahead. So I put those two things together, hard work and good public schools, and was able to attend UCLA, where I studied international relations, geography, and environmental studies, and most importantly, met my wife Lisa, who's in the back over here, on the UCLA mock trial team. That was more than 10 years ago, and just last night we celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary with a great dinner at the Social right down the street. Thank you so much for being an amazing partner. It's been a fabulous 3 years, and I look forward to what the future has in store as we continue building our life in Santa Clarita. After UCLA, I went to Yale Law School. I then worked for a United States federal judge, and I came back to Southern California, where I practiced as an attorney, taking on some of the biggest banks and the wealthiest corporations in the world. And what I saw on an almost daily basis is how hard-working American families were being taken advantage of because career politicians in Washington were stacking the deck against them. And so Lisa and I sat back and said, let's not do this on a case-by-case basis. Let's not do this one client at a time. Let's try to build a better system. Let's fight for an economy that works for everyone and not just the wealthy few. That means increasing the minimum wage because no person should work a full-time job and live in poverty. It means once and for all ending wage discrimination. Because when I sit there and think of my 14-year-old niece, Summer, and the fact that in a few years, some boss of hers might think it's okay to pay her less than a guy doing the same job simply because she's a young woman, that's wrong. And I'm going to fight every day in Congress to make sure it doesn't happen. And it means strengthening and securing Social Security and Medicare so that we fulfill the sacred promise for our seniors. Thank you for your time. I look forward to a robust debate.
Steve Knight.
Well, thank you to the Signal, and thank you for everyone coming out and being part of this forum. It has been my pleasure and my honor to be the representative for this district for the last 17 months. Before that, I was your representative at the State House as your senator for 2 years, and before that, I was an assemblyman for 4 years for the 36th Assembly District, which encompassed the Victor Valley and the Antelope Valley. I've also been a Palmdale City Councilman, and I think the breadth of that knowledge is something that I take forward in all of the problems that I work with. But my career was in law enforcement. I served in the Los Angeles Police Department for 18 years. I went to 5 different divisions and served in several different capacities on the LAPD. I'm married to my beautiful wife here in the audience for 27 years this October. There's no one that I'm more impressed with than my wife. There's no one I love more than my wife. She is a NICU nurse, and she takes care of premature babies on an almost daily basis. We have 2 boys. One is graduating from Sacramento State. I was working with him on his final report last night. I hope he gets an A, because if he doesn't, I'm sure he'll blame me a little bit. And then my youngest son is graduating from Quartz Hill High School on June 2nd, and it will be my honor to speak at his graduation. There are big, big problems that are happening in the world, and big, big solutions need to happen. What's happening right now? Look, we looked at the news today. Donald Trump is now, looks like maybe the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party. We don't know that yet, and I haven't endorsed in 9 months. I won't endorse today, but I think that these types of issues are coming out on a daily basis. Big problems, Social Security, Medicare, payment on the debt. If we do not work on these problems right now, these are country-failing issues. So we need someone with a breadth of knowledge, someone who has worked through the city, through the state, and through the federal level, because these issues are not just federal levels. They are connective. And someone who has that kind of knowledge really understands how to make these problems go away and how to cure some of these issues. So I thank you very much. I look forward to a robust debate.
Thank you. Lou Vince.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Signal and everyone for being here, especially the usual suspects there that come out for me. Thank you. My name is Lou Vince, and I'm running for the 25th Congressional District, but I'd like to think you guys all knew that tonight. My day job is I'm a lieutenant with the Los Angeles Police Department. I've done that for 21 years. I have worked in the Los Angeles Police Department and tackled many different problems. In fact, I'm trained to run towards problems, not away from them. And every day I see problems, not just in the 25th, but nationwide, that are going to require bold and progressive solutions. I'm a veteran, an elected member of the Agua Dulce Town Council, and as a police lieutenant, I know that people, when they work together, that the results can be attained for the good of everyone and not just a select few. A few background facts about myself. I'm a native Californian. I live in Agua Dulce, where I've been elected to the Town Council 3 times. My wife and I have 4 kids. Ages 6, 8, 10, and 11. 2 of those kids we adopted through Los Angeles County DCFS, because we know that children need strong guidance and support to be successful. So children will be a strong focus of my tenure as your representative. On a more national level, some of the things that I'm very concerned about are expanding and protecting Social Security and Medicare, finding educational and job opportunities for our veterans returning for more, increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Like Mr. Caforio said, there's no reason people should work full-time and not be able to make ends meet and to have struggles every day. And I see that on the streets of Los Angeles, so I've got firsthand knowledge of that. Locally, we've got to, I bet there's going to be a question tonight about CMEX, but we've got to stop CMEX. Right?
Wow, you're smart.
Yeah, I took notes on that one. We've got to do something about finally getting the Santa Susana Field Lab cleaned up to background radiation levels. We've got to stop the expansion of the Chiquita Canyon landfill. For those of you that don't know, that's going to be the largest landfill in the United States, right in your backyard. So really what I want to tell you tonight is that I'm here to run for something, that not run against anyone. I'm here to run for my family, and I'm here to run for your family and represent them in Washington. So I look forward to a great debate tonight. Thank you.
All right, now, each candidate will answer each question. I will not bother to reintroduce this wonderful panel of experts, but I have a suggestion. Why don't you ask a question about CMEX?
Okay. What specifically will you do to make sure the CMEX mine does not operate ever in the Santa Clarita Valley?
Thank you for the question. keeping CMEX closed or never opened is of critical importance in this community. There are a few things we need to do. First, we hope to be successful through the legal process, which is happening right now as CMEX appeals it through the agency, and then we'll likely take it into the courts. And we need to make sure that we have a representative who understands the legal system, understands the legal arguments, and can be successful in that avenue. Then we need to bring in legislation that will forever prevent CMEX from opening a mine here in this community. That's why I'm proud to be endorsed by Brad Sherman and Judy Chu, the other members of Congress who are working on this issue, and recognize that I'm the best partner to work with to ensure that we never have that open mine here.
Thank you. Steve?
Well, obviously, we're sitting somewhere close to this about 2 years ago, and all 8 candidates, including the Republicans, the Democrats, and the Libertarians, said this was the #1 issue, that making sure that CMEX would never come to fruition. As your senator in 2013, I sent out a letter to Senators Boxer and Senator Feinstein. We started the ball rolling. When I became your representative, I sat down with the city council just like I did as the senator. And I said, you know what, for 18 years, this is institutional knowledge that people should know. For 18 years, we have tried to do things against CMEX, including legislation, several times. It has failed several times. So we sat down, we hammered out good, real solutions. On August 28th, the BLM had reversed 180 degrees, nullified their contracts because of what we had done. We had built that coalition and we had moved it forward. Legislation is not always the answer, and for 18 years, we knew that out here.
Thank you. Lou?
Specifically to stop the CMEX mine, I'm totally against it. I'm the only person that lives close to it that's up on this on the stage right now. I live about 2 miles from it. My kids go to school right down the street from it. I've been on the Agua Dulce Town Council, and I know we say CMEX is in Santa Clarita, but let's face it, that's Agua Dulce where it is. So I've been working on this for some time in a bipartisan manner with the city of Santa Clarita, with Agua Dulce, with the supervisor's office, and I think the same thing is going to happen when I go to Congress. I'm going to work on bipartisan legislation that gets this finally put to bed so it doesn't go on for 18 years. I think it's taken way too long, and the last thing we need is more attorneys working on this. We need real people coming up with real solutions, reaching some compromise, and getting it done before we all have to go out there and stand in front of a bulldozer with our hands held together. And I will do that as your congressman.
Thank you. We'll now go to Krista.
What specific things will you do, whether they be legislation, projects, or programs, that will help the Santa Clarita Valley?
We'll go in the same order, Brian.
Sure, thank you for that question. There's a lot that needs to be done in this community. We have a lot of issues that are facing us, but the first thing we need to do is make sure we're building that economy that works for everyone by investing in infrastructure here in the community so that we are creating jobs here in the community, not just while we're having the project in place, while we're bringing high-speed broadband internet, while we're making sure the 14 moves quickly and efficiently and that 2 inches of rain don't shut down all the roads because of a mudslide, but also because we're going to be able to continue having jobs in the area when we improve the infrastructure, when we make this a positive place for businesses to come, when we're investing in STEM, in vocational training, in community colleges to make sure that we continue to have the best students to work in all of the businesses in the area.
Thank you. Steve?
Well, it's going to take a lot more than 1 minute to answer this question, but I'll do my best. The very first thing we did was when we were elected, we looked at the committees that would help this district. Very first committee we lobbied for was Armed Services. The second was Science, Space, and Technology, and then we went to small business. If you go around this district from Simi Valley to Antelope Valley, you're going to find hundreds, if not thousands, of entrepreneurs and small businesses. So our very first bill was for small businesses. We put a joint venturing act together. It was pushed through Congress and signed by President Obama. No votes. It allowed small businesses to join together, act as a large business for federal grants. This is the first time this has ever happened. Everyone said this was the right way to go about small businesses. And so now we have pushed forward with a mentor protege program that is being pushed through Congress. These are the types of issues that if you're working on small business, affect small business. Lastly, we have worked on aerospace harder than anyone who's ever been in the Senate, in the Assembly, and hopefully now in Congress.
Thank you very much. Lou?
Excuse me, having 4 kids, education is near and dear to my heart. So one of the things I'd want to do, definitely focus on education here in the Santa Clarita Valley. I can tell you a personal story that I have a special needs student, daughter, and she wasn't able to get the services she needs here in the Valley because the federal government is not fully funding the special education. That's one of the things I will be on top of and working on right from the get-go. The second thing, I support, although not a federal issue, I support Measure E, and so we can improve and expand College of the Canyons. I also think that we need grants for the nonpartisan and nonprofit and charities that are in the Valley that help students, that help provide care after school, and I will work to do that to make sure that every student has a great environment to learn, whether that's at school or after school.
Thank you. Jana, your question.
Candidates, welcome tonight. You all address small business a little bit. Could you be a little more specific as to what type of legislation you would introduce to help small businesses in Santa Clarita?
And let's reverse the order this time. Let's start with Lou and we'll come over this way.
That's a good question. The legislation that I'd want to see for small businesses is just tax breaks. I support allowing small businesses to work together. In fact, I have to give a compliment where a compliment is due. Congressman Knight introduced a bill that allowed small businesses to work together so that they can attain bigger contracts that it might not be eligible for. But I want to see that done even better, where you can work for a government contract and not have to partner with another business, where parts of the contract can be pulled out and you can go for that part of the contract. So it's not all to one, all or nothing, so to speak.
Congressman?
Well, I will take another minute on this because there is so much to talk about when you're talking about small business, but we are authoring and we are going to present our Aerospace Innovation Act. And the Aerospace Innovation Act basically looks at the small businesses in aerospace all the way up through the large businesses that affect aerospace and working on the roadmap that we see for the next 50 years. If we don't start talking about that, then it is a quilt work. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're not funding this, we're not funding that, but we're funding this. We worked with Jaewon Shin, he's in charge of all their aeronautics for NASA, and we built this roadmap. If this roadmap continues to go and we fund things like hypersonics and a supersonic modulator that will get us across this country in 2 hours and get us to Tokyo in 4 hours, if we can do those things, it benefits this area tremendously. It's not all about Lockheed and Northrop. It is about all of the companies that we go to, the ADIs, the Megats, all of the companies that are throughout this district.
Thank you.
This is one of the things that I think is frustrating to so many people when we look at the politicians in Washington who just keep focusing on the wrong priorities, who just keep giving handout after handout to the biggest banks and the wealthiest corporations while forgetting that small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy. So we need to make it easier to get more expanded small business administration loans. And that's why when the Porter Ranch gas leak happened, I was one of the first people calling for an emergency declaration so that the businesses who were affected by the Porter Ranch gas leak, because when thousands of people leave, that hurts your business, they were able to get loans to come in at a low interest rate and help them. We need to do that on a broader scale. We also need to make sure that the SBDC here at College of the Canyons is fully staffed, fully funded, and is there available helping the small business entrepreneurs who are in this community to make sure they can cut through the red tape and continue creating the great jobs that push this community forward.
Thank you. All right, Jason, you have the next question.
Would you defy your party leadership to help ease the toxic atmosphere in Washington?
We're going to start here with Brian. If you couldn't hear it all, he said, would you defy your party leadership to help end the toxic atmosphere?
Absolutely. You don't go to Washington in order to represent a party. You go to represent the people in the community, and you need to do what works best to move the community forward. That's why it was so disappointing when Congressman Knight a few years ago said that he doesn't think partisan is a bad word and he doesn't want to reach across the aisle. I think that's wrong. We need to have a representative who goes to Washington and looks at what is best for the community, consider the issues, stand up to the corporate special interest, and making sure that you are voting for and bringing forward the best possible solutions, regardless of whether it's a Democratic idea or a Republican idea.
Thank you. Steve?
Interesting. I served in the California State Senate as a representative, as a Republican representative. In those 2 years, I passed more legislation than any other Republican senator in California. You cannot do that in California unless you have a lot of Democrat friends. You cannot do that without reaching across the aisle. It's impossible in California. Secondly, if we move forward to, let's look at scorecards. What are happening out there right now? There's about 100 scorecards. Many of them are very, very conservative scorecards. Look up my conservative scorecards and you're going to find that I have voted against my party several times. In fact, about 50% of the time on major issues. So I have reached across the aisle and I have said, if it is a good idea, then I'm going to listen and we're going to work with it. So my record stands clearly that I have reached across the aisle.
Let me step in and just interrupt. Give us one of the major issues in which you divide your party leadership. Just one.
Absolutely.
Or two if you want.
XM Bank. XM Bank is a perfect example of, I was one of the 43 signatures. I was one of the only Republicans to step forward and say, if we don't reauthorize the XM Bank, then our businesses are going to be at a competitive disadvantage. There's no doubt about that. We are going to be losing contracts, and the other 87 countries that do these types of procedures and have these types of banks will have a competitive advantage over us. So I absolutely stood forward and I signed on the dotted line.
Lou?
Thank you. Thank you for the question because it hits home for me. I'm the living embodiment of defying my party leadership. I've been asked to drop out of this race by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee so they can run their candidate, so they can bring their candidate in and run him in this race. I'm running for you. I'm running for the community, and I'm going to always fight when I'm representing you. I'm not trying to buy this seat. So when someone like my party leadership asks me to drop out, I tell them that's not how it's supposed to work. We send our representative from the 25th to Washington. We don't let Washington send us our representative. So I definitely already have a history of defying my party leadership.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good answer. There will be no parades. Krista?
What do you feel is the biggest transportation issue that affects the Santa Clarita Valley, and what would you do about it?
Lou, we're going to start with you again.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is high-speed rail, but I don't think that's going to affect the Santa Clarita Valley now because it's been worked out, and I've been part of the North County Protection Coalition to stop that from having a negative impact through Aguadulce and Santa Clarita. So I definitely say the 5 and the 14 are the biggest issues. The Antelope Valley is growing exponentially, and the 14 is just getting tighter and tighter. I drive that every day. So I'd want to go to Congress, be on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and work towards getting funds to expand the freeways and get that taken care of, because I'm guessing most of you out here are just like me. You sit in traffic a good portion of your life, which can be better spent, whether that's working at your small business or spent with your family. And I understand those issues, and I'll work on them when I get to Congress.
Thank you. Steve?
The T&I committee is one of the most powerful committees, and I applaud Mr. Vince for wanting to be on the committee. Here in Santa Clarita, I think that when you see the Cross Valley Connector, when that opened, it was a huge portion of the Santa Clarita Valley being connected to the other part. But let's face it, if you are going up the 5 and you're going with the trucks up northbound, up toward Magic Mountain, you are going to be stuck most of the time of the day. If you go off to the 14 and you come over the hill, as I have for 30 years of doing this, you are going to be stuck there most of the time of the day. If you're going to go and work on T&I, you're going to have to work on the highway system. And that highway system here in Santa Clarita is as important as probably anywhere in this country. But that 5 and that 14 has to be changed because that is such a major truck artery.
All right.
Would you push for more federal funds to do that?
Absolutely. We are already been talking about that. We've already been talking about how funding can come into those projects.
Yeah, this is an issue of personal importance to me as well. My wife and I both commute to work. We live in Valencia. She takes the metro downtown. I commute to Century City and spend a lot of time sitting on the 5, sitting on the 405, and it's terrible. We have people spending 1 hour, 2 hours or more each way, each day in traffic. That's times away from your family. It's time away from doing the things you really want to do. And so we need to make sure we're bringing federal funds in, more than the Republicans in the House of Representatives have been willing to put forward, making sure that we're expanding the freeways, making sure that we're clearing it up, and making sure that we have a representative in Washington who isn't afraid to fight for more resources to come back to our community.
Those are all interesting answers, but I want you to be a little more specific. What does that mean? Bringing in money for what? What is the answer? How do you solve it? And we'll start with you, Brian, and go down the row.
Sure. Well, it's what's been talked about here. It includes expanding the highway. That means expanding carpool lanes. You know, we've been working on that. We need to do more. It means bringing in a new lane where possible. It means having perhaps truck lanes that have to stay in a certain place on the side of the road so you don't get stuck behind them, as Congressman Knight suggested. We need to be doing everything we can to keep the roads open. That also includes giving more benefits for carpooling, having more ride-sharing programs, having more buses, having systems where people can get out of Santa Clarita or into Santa Clarita without just clogging up the 5 and 14.
Congressman?
Yeah, in the Antelope Valley and Santa Clarita Valley, I think we carpool about as much as anywhere. Palmdale is the #1 longest commuting city in the country. They average 43 miles from Palmdale. You get about 60 or 65,000 people coming over from the Antelope Valley, down the hill, into Santa Clarita, and then down into LA. So this is going to continue on. We just passed a 5-year bill for construction, a 5-year bill for highways. That is the first time that's happened in many, many years. Normally it is a push. Let's do it for a year. Let's do it for a year. But we decided this year we're going to have leadership and we're going to make this so it's 5 years so that the people that are building these, so that the construction that's going to happen, know what's going to happen over the next 5 years. But we absolutely have to put money into the 5 and we have to change that. The 5 is going to have to be changed over the years. The ride sharing and all of those programs are great. We've been doing them for 50 years out here. We're just about maxed out. So it is going to have to be money and widening those freeways.
I agree, absolutely. Adding lanes and improving the transportation, the Metrolink and so forth, are absolutely must for out here. But what I hear is we need money for it. So I want to see an expansion of an infrastructure bank where the state and the cities can borrow money from the federal government, and they can borrow that money based on their projected tax revenues and not have to pay an exorbitant amount of interest and so forth on that, so they can buy and build and improve the transportation now with today's dollars that aren't, and it's going to be cost savings. It's not going to cost them more in the long run. And I think that's a win-win for everybody, and I'd work towards that, getting bipartisan legislation to make that happen.
Thank you. Jana?
Thank you. What should the federal government do to create better paying jobs?
Well, as I said at the beginning, the first thing I want to do is focus on raising the minimum wage. In 1968, the national minimum wage was the equivalent of $10.90 in today's dollars. Right now, it is $7.25. That's a 33% decrease over that time period. At the same time, the average CEO has seen his or her income increase 997%. That's wrong. That shows that we are moving in the wrong direction. And we need to make sure we are doing what we can to bring people up from the bottom so that no person is working a full-time job and being in poverty, and that no people are deciding between working 2 or 3 jobs to put food on the table or ever seeing their family. And so we've started to make movement in this direction, but there's a long way to go, and there's a lot we can do to make life better for the hardworking families in this district.
The question's really about better paying jobs rather than minimum wage increases. What do you think should be done? There's a lot of jobs out there that just don't pay well. They don't take any skills. Can you address that?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if we're beyond minimum wage, which will increase wages for tens of millions of Americans, we also need to make sure that we are putting investment into training the workforce. So that it's great to have wonderful four-year educational facilities, but we need to do more for people who aren't going to a four-year college. We need to be putting investments into community colleges, into vocational training, into apprenticeship and internship programs to make sure that people are getting the training so that they can take those jobs when they are open.
All right, the other candidates, you have 2 minutes to answer that. So you can answer anything you want. You have 2 minutes.
Anything I want?
Change the topic.
That question.
So,
Is it going to rain?
quickly, there are many things you can do. But if you've shown what you do, I think there is a record. So let's look at a record. Let's look at what we did in the Senate. We got wind that there was going to be a new bomber built in America. Now it's the B-21. We thought it was going to be the B-3. We went to the governor's office and we said, Governor, we've got to do something, or Florida, Texas, and Missouri are going to steal this away from us. Created a $420 million tax credit for a prime contractor, not a subcontractor, for a prime contractor. Northrop won the contract. Now we're going to be building a lot of the B-21 right here in Southern California. The second thing is education. If we don't have the skills, if we don't have the people that can do these jobs, then they will go elsewhere or they will get their education elsewhere. So we worked with a company called Microsoft, and Microsoft said, look, we need coders. We need people that can design software. So we said, okay, how can we do that? And they said, well, we have a program. It's called TEALS. A lot of you know what TEALS is today because we brought TEALS into the Santa Clarita Valley and the Antelope Valley while I was in the Senate and the Assembly. Now it's in 5 schools here in these 2 valleys. One of them's an AP class. One of them has 100 kids on the waiting list. And TEALS program is just a computer science program built right out of the district. It could be for aeronautics, it could be for electrical engineering, it could be for anything, but it builds right out of the computer science issues of the district. And those kids, just like when they were in VEX or Lego or robotics or any of those things, now they can be pushed forward, move into TEALS, have that computer science with them, move on, get a great education, and take those jobs. Right now, 150,000 jobs per year are created in the computer science field in America every year. Average pay, $73,000 a year. That's what we can do.
Excellent. Lou?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ham. The first thing I'd say to answer your question is I want to see a bigger investment in vocational training. I think that's important. Those are good jobs like plumbers, chefs, and so forth. Jobs that can't be sent overseas. Jobs that are the backbone of America. Recently I served on the Citizens Bond Oversight Commission in Acton Agua Dulce School District to build a high school. And one of the things I worked on, and yes, we did build the high school. If you drive up the 14, you can see it, was having vocational training in the high school. And so we got money for a kitchen to teach children how to be chefs. Also, that'll go along with opposing the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which I oppose, because that's going to send good jobs overseas where they can be done in countries for a lot cheaper. So I think we need to focus on vocational training, whether that's in high schools or also in the community colleges, and stopping the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Thank you. The next question, you're going to get 2 minutes for your answer. And the question is from Krista.
What are the weaknesses in our national security?
And we'll start in the middle this time. Steve?
2 minutes. So I sit on armed services. In that capacity, I sit on 3 major subcommittees. One is TAL, that is all your fighters. I sit on Sea Power, that is all of your subs, your aircraft carriers, and your bombers. And I sit on military personnel. So the first thing I will talk about is military personnel. There's been a push over the last year or two to remove commissaries from bases. Commissaries right now are a benefit to that young sailor's wife or that young airman that has just found themselves 19 and at a base that's 30 miles away from a grocery store. We have fought that, and we've continued to fight that, and commissaries will stay on the bases through this NDAA and in the last NDAA. We will always fight that. If you don't have good benefits for the people that go to the base, then that benefit or those lack of benefits will make them not want to re-up or not want to stay in the military. So you must do that. The second thing is we have to be on the leading edge. That's why we're pushing the Aerospace Innovation Act. Part of the Aerospace Innovation Act is hypersonics. We did hypersonics up to 1968 when a young man named Pete Knight flew the X-15. We jumped to 2002 when the X-43 was there, and then the X-51, and then we shut it down. No hypersonics. Hypersonics is shooting out a projectile over Mach 5. Right now, the Chinese are about 10 steps ahead of us. If we don't do something, the Chinese will have a weapon that can reach out and touch us at 4,000 miles an hour. Why is that important? Because right now we have a carrier fleet in the South China Sea. If they obtain that weapon, that carrier fleet will have to move out to Guam so that they will be safe. We have to move on these types of issues. And all of those have to do with how we fight, how we can defend, what our enemies know we can do, and what our enemies know we can't do.
All right, Lou, will you take a crack at it?
Okay, I think the answer to the biggest national security threat can be summed up in one word, and that's Trump. Yeah. But I only have, okay, yeah, that was a joke. 2 minutes, so I'll talk about ISIS. I think it's important that we partner with other countries. We can't continue to be the world's police force while other countries get the benefit from it. We need to force a partner, not force, but work together to make a partnership so they're all working towards the same goal and everybody else has just as much skin in the game as we do. Secondly, climate change. I think climate change is a huge impact on national defense. You heard the congressman talk about warships and so forth, and they're going to have a hard time if they can't get to their docks to get in their ships. So with sea levels rising, we need to work on renewable energy sources, have a national mandate to reduce carbon gas emissions. And those are some of the things that I think are very important. The last thing, and it's come up before, I think the cyber world is one of the biggest national security threats. We hear constantly about China invading or poking into corporate computer systems and national or government computer systems as well. So we need to have a strong focus on stopping that. Never mind the national security issue of that, but just the intellectual property theft that goes on there that is also occurring, which negatively impacts our country when the economy can't grow like it's supposed to because trade secrets are being stolen. So those are three of the things I would work on as your congressman.
Thank you. Brian?
Yes, cybersecurity is a huge threat for us right now. And we need to make sure that when confronting this 21st century threat, we're using 21st century tools in order to protect ourselves. And that means we need to cooperate and work closely with the great tech companies that we have in the United States to make sure that we are working cooperatively, not opposing each other, so that we can keep our communities safe. But the greatest threat we face is ISIS. And we don't just face that threat overseas. As we learned towards the end of last year in San Bernardino, we face that threat right here. And we need to do everything we can to confront that threat right here. And that's why we need to make sure we impose what should be common sense gun safety measures to keep guns out of the hands of potential terrorists at home. Now, Congressman Knight has gone to Washington and voted no less than 10 times to allow suspected terrorists on the terrorism watch list to continue purchasing firearms. That's wrong. That keeps our communities less safe. It puts us at risk. And I will fight every day I am in Congress to make sure that no suspected terrorist in the United States is able to purchase weapons in our communities.
All right, that's enough. One of the things that I hope we don't do again is boo or have too much demonstration. There'll be plenty of time at the end. You can do anything you want. Include applaud. Jana.
There are gaps in services for our nation's veterans. What would you do to help solve this problem or address it?
Brian?
Absolutely, and it's a travesty. When someone has served and sacrificed for this country, we need to do everything we can to take care of them when they return. And there are a lot of problems. From the Santa Clarita Valley, from the Antelope Valley, it is so hard to travel down to Westwood Sepulveda in order to get the services, the health care, the physical, mental health. that you need in order to reintegrate. And so we need to bring more VA facilities up to the Santa Clarita Valley and Antelope Valley, or at least allow our veterans to get reimbursed when they get those services at a private facility. We also need to increase the vocational training, the educational training to allow our veterans to get good jobs. And that's why the post 9/11 GI Bill is absolutely critical to make sure that we are taking care of our veterans to the best extent possible. Unfortunately, Republicans in the House of Representatives just a few months ago voted to cut the benefits under the post 9/11 GI Bill. I will defend that bill in Congress.
Steve?
Nothing's more important. I am an Army veteran. I was enlisted right out of high school, just like a lot of kids that go to boot camp and they get very scared of what's going on. I was during the Cold War. I had to go to Germany and protect the Fulda Gap. The Fulda Gap was where the Russian army was going to come over and address Western Europe. So I understand it very well. That's why this Monday we're rolling out the Vet Help button. It's going to be on our website. I tell everyone to look at it, but especially vets, because I say within 2 minutes and no less or no more than 4 clicks, you are going to get to the information or the help that you need, whether it be school, medical, medals that you never got. All of these things will be less than 2 minutes, less than 4 clicks. Because you all know if you go onto a veteran site right now, it's about 3 pages of reading, and you get down to the bottom and you find out that's not what I wanted. You go to the next page of reading and the next page. My Veteran Help button, we are going to push this throughout Congress, and we're going to show everyone in Congress this is the way you help veterans.
Thank you. Lou?
Thank you for your service, Congressman Knight. As a veteran myself, I also keenly understand the problems with the Veterans Administration. We do have a high population of veterans in the Antelope Valley, and there are services there. They're just not adequate. So I want to see more services brought to the Antelope Valley, the Santa Clarita Valley. It's just absurd that any veteran would have to go from, say, Palmdale to Westwood. I'm sure if any of you tried it, just on any given day, it would take you hours. So we need to fix that. The second thing I want to see is about transitioning. That's where I've worked on the streets of Los Angeles for 21 years. When you find a veteran that's in trouble, somehow it always comes back to, I can't find a job, I can't move forward with my life. So we need to partner with unions. We need to partner with unions. These veterans coming out of the service already have the skill set that a lot of unions need. So we need to find a way to plug in the veteran into the pipeline with the unions and make that transition much, much smoother. And I would work hard on making that a reality.
Thank you. As most of you know, the Veterans Affairs is a very important thing for the Signal. In fact, the Signal is the only newspaper or any media publication in the United States that has a director of Veterans Affairs. So keep watching the Signal because it is a signal issue for us. I'm not making a pun. It is a very important issue for us, and it should be for all of you, and so thank you for your answer. Next, we will have Jason.
What is your stance on immigration reform?
And we'll start here again with Brian and go down the road.
Sure. I support comprehensive immigration reform. And this is another area where I disagree strongly with Congressman Knight. You know, he stated that he has no problems deporting the parents of American citizens. I do. I will fight for families. And that's why we need to have comprehensive immigration reform. It's why we need to have a pathway to citizenship so that we can bring 11 to 12 million people out of the shadows, take away the fear that they will be separated from their families, and allow them to participate fully in our economy so that we can all move forward into the 21st century together.
Steve?
Yeah, here's another area where experience helps. Experience counts. I am married to a young lady from Chile, and she came over here legally, and we went through the whole process, including sleeping on the steps of the building down in LA 3 nights in a row with our blankets and going through the process and looking at attorneys that were taking over this process because it's too hard. The only ones who understand it are the attorneys who are making $3,500 to $5,000 every pop on every person that goes through the process. So if we want real comprehensive immigration reform, then let's do that. But let's make it so that people understand how they can do it. It's got to be hard enough that it's going to discourage some people, but it's got to work so that everybody can do it if they put the effort into it. But right now, Go down to LA and you're going to find about 100 attorneys down there that are charging $3,500 to every person that probably doesn't have $3,500 anywhere in their life to get into this country. It's a travesty.
Excuse me, are you saying to simplify the process?
Absolutely simplify the process, absolutely. And if you make the process in such a way that you make it hard but doable, you will in essence make your own quota system. But right now, all we're looking at is the illegal operation instead of looking at the legal operation. And you can do that. You can do that with a legal operation. But right now it's so convoluted and it is such a program to get through. Like I say, there's only one set of people that is making any money and are glad to do it.
Lou?
I agree that we need comprehensive immigration reform. We need to stop the mass deportations. We need a pathway to citizenship. We should be able to let students that are brought here without their choosing, as young people, to stay here and have a pathway to citizenship. That's good for them. That's good for us. That's good for America and the economy. We need to stop wage theft so that businesses aren't taking advantage of undocumented people that are here illegally and are afraid of deportation. We need to make sure that law enforcement isn't in the business of criminalizing people's statuses, and we need to get the federal government out of our local jails for minor crimes. That simply shouldn't be the case. There's too much of a community here already that lives in fear. I see it every day at work. They don't want to talk to the police. They don't want to be witnesses in crimes that may solve a major case that would help everybody. So we definitely need comprehensive immigration reform, and I've seen the impacts of it not happening, and I would work towards that.
All right, Krista, you're next.
Should the federal government help state and local governments try to deal with the drought in the West? And if so, how?
We'll start with you, Steve.
Yes,
Well, that's good.
absolutely. We have worked, I've been there for 2 years. We've worked on 2 comprehensive water bills. Both of them would have helped this state dramatically. Both of them were pulled out from under us by Senator Feinstein in December. Both of them. We reached out to Senator Feinstein and Senator Boxer and said, if you don't lead this in the Senate, no other senator will think that this is a big problem. So we are continuing to work with Senator Feinstein to make her understand that there is actually a drought in California. But yes, we have worked with comprehensive water bills for the last 2 years and actually the last 7 years. I was also a huge supporter of the water bond that was passed, I believe 3 years ago. But part of that is allowing us to do what's in the water bond. If we're going to get the new reservoirs at Temperance Flats and sites, then let's build them. Let's get out of the way and let's get these new reservoirs built so that we have the storage, so that in drought times, we have more water.
All right, Lou?
Yes, I think we need tax credits for conservation. I also want to say that we need to work with, it's hard to say Washington is just going to help with the drought. We need, when I was younger, maybe 30 years old, I thought I knew everything. But now I know I don't know everything. So I definitely seek out the local help from the water boards that are here doing the work every day, working hard, that understand the nuances of the wells in the Santa Clarita Valley. So I definitely want to do that work with them. The other thing is, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's countries around the world that have water conservation problems, and we can look to places like Israel that already have a pretty good handle on this, and we can partner with them to implement those practices here.
Yes, absolutely. We've made a lot of progress over the last few years with conservation, and it's great to try to capture the water that comes down, but unfortunately it's not enough. As we've learned over the last few years, we can't rely on the rain falling or the snowpacks building up. We need leadership in Washington that is going to try to take affirmative steps. That's why I want to bring and build a large-scale water recycling plant here to this district. There's one in Oxnard, there's a great one in Fountain Valley that provides enough water for 850,000 people every single year. That's more people than live in the entire 25th district combined. And not only will this give us much-needed water security, it will also create great, good-paying jobs while building the facility and while operating the facility for years to come.
Thank you. Jenna?
Aerospace is a very important industry in the 25th district, and there's been a little bit of discussion about that already, but what would you do to help bring more work for the companies that exist here, or to attract more companies here?
And we'll start with you, Brian.
Sure. Everybody in this room knows how crucially important the aerospace industry is, not just in the Antelope Valley and the Santa Clarita Valley and Simi Valley. And we need a representative in Washington who's going to do everything possible to bring more jobs. And it's great that we have the long-range bomber coming. What I would have liked to have seen more of are more internship programs, more apprenticeship programs, so that the new jobs that are coming in aren't going to be going to employees who live in another state and just move in to take those high-paying jobs. We need to make sure that we are continuing to train the best possible workforce right here. We have the infrastructure in place. We have the ability to build not just defense aerospace, but commercial, space flight. And then if we make sure that we are continuing to train the best possible employees for the future, businesses are going to continue coming here as they've done for the last 50 years and continue to provide good jobs in this area.
Steve?
The aerospace issue in this district has always been paramount. It has been for the last 75 years. This is where flight took flight. The Wright brothers can say it was in North Carolina, but it was actually here in Southern California, is where we've been building airplanes for 90 years. So I brought out Mac Thornberry. He's the chairman of Armed Services, and I brought him through Northrop, and I let him see the Joint Strike Fighter workings there. I brought him over to Lockheed. We brought him all the way through Plant 42, and then he has worked his way through Santa Clarita and other areas here in Southern California. We also brought an engineering program. Long Beach State brought an engineering program up to the Antelope Valley. UAV is now having an engineering program because we want those people to graduate those colleges just like we want them coming out of COC and going into an engineering program and then working here. If we can do those things, just like Northrop and Lockheed have a huge, brilliant, and vibrant internship program there, then we'll keep our jobs here and aerospace will continue to thrive.
Lou?
I agree with both the gentlemen here, and I'd also like to increase or add a 4-year school in the Antelope Valley so that we can have the skilled labor, the skilled students that are there in school. That'll bring the companies. That'll allow them to have students in internships and work with them and recruit them right out of high school or vocational training and make that pipeline like I talked about before with the veterans. We just need someone to take a leadership role with that. You know, obviously as a congressman, I'm not going to decide whether or not Cal State comes to the Antelope Valley, but I am definitely going to use that office as a bully pulpit to make that help happen with that end in mind.
Let me ask each of you to be a little more specific. What exactly work for the aerospace companies would you try to get here? What kind of pork would you try to deliver for the district? We'll start with you, Lou.
What kind of work that I would bring?
Pork.
Pork. I don't think that's appropriate to say to a cop, but okay.
Oh, wow, the thoughts that went through my head.
Well, like I said before, you can bring grants, you can bring, try to get tax breaks, you can try to bring more contracts for the companies that are here so they can get more money, more pork. So that's something I'm always going to have in mind. Like I said, I want to represent the 25th district, not special interest, and the aerospace industry is a huge part of the 25th district.
Thanks, Steve.
So over the last 17 months, I've visited about 50 schools and about 135 businesses. Many of those businesses are involved in aerospace, DoD, or space. In this last NDAA, I put in an amendment that said we wanted 2 more Tritons. The Tritons are the unmanned system that comes out of Northrop that goes out to the Point Hueneme and Naval Air Station Ventura, built right in Plant 42. A lot of the subcontractors are right here in the 25th district. We also fought to keep SOFIA. SOFIA is the airborne telescope, and we have a full funding of the airborne telescope there. Again, many of the contractors are right here in the 25th district. We fought for the F-35 program and put several more F-35s into the NDAA. The F-35 center fuselage is built at Northrop in Palmdale. Many of the subcontractors, I would say 50 or 60 of them are right here in the 25th Congressional District. So I wouldn't say that is pork. That is asking what the military needs and then responding.
Would you tell the audience what NDAA stands for?
National Defense Authorization Act. That is when we spend the money for the military.
Brian?
We all talked about the need to have good education options here so that we have the best workers to take these jobs. Unfortunately, since 2011, federal funding of education has gone down by 20%. So we need to be fighting to bring federal dollars to the 25th District to make sure that we're funding these vocational training opportunities, the apprenticeship, the internship programs. We can bring that directly to the district. We also, I'm endorsed by the United Aerospace Workers, Local 887, right up there in the Antelope Valley. This is something that I'm working very closely with them to make sure that we are understanding what needs they have, how we can bring the best jobs to the Antelope Valley and Santa Clarita Valley, and making sure that we are getting those government contracts for the businesses here in this community so that we all move forward with those high-paying jobs.
Thank you. Jason, you have the next question.
Should partisan office holders in state and national offices endorse candidates in nonpartisan local races, such as city council and school board?
We'll start with you, Lou. Lou,
Oh, sorry.
I didn't want to say pork again, so.
I didn't see any donuts out there either, right? Should federal and state officials partisan endorse in local races like school board and
Yeah,
supervisors?
nonpartisan races, local nonpartisan races.
I think they should. I think that people should understand where a person's values, where they lie, something about them, and I don't see why that's a problem. I think that, I ran for sheriff in 2014, and that's a nonpartisan office, but it was important for people to understand, or important for the candidates to have the support of certain people to show their credibility, show their viability, and show what they stand for. So I don't have a problem with that personally.
Steve?
Well, I think this is a question directed at me. I was involved in a race here in Santa Clarita, and I think that there was some question whether a congressman should be involved in a nonpartisan local race. I think that you've got to be very judicious in that. I do. I stayed out of a race up in the Antelope Valley when it had to do with a high school district. We lost the best high school district trustee we have ever had. And my son goes to a school up there. So I wish I was involved in that. I wish I would have pushed for that candidate so that we would still have her on the Board of Trustees in the Antelope Valley Union High School District. But I do think that you have to be judicious, and you have to understand that if you're going to be involved, then you've got to have a serious tie to what's happening. I would say me having a son in the high school gives me a serious tie. Me having a niece and a nephew in the high school district down here gives me a tie to those districts. But I do believe that the congressional member at the federal level has to be judicious in where they put their support and when they don't.
Thank you. Brian?
The great thing about our democratic system is that when a representative in Congress or at any level takes actions that the community disagrees with, there's an opportunity to let that person know and vote them out. So I don't have a problem with a representative of Congress endorsing a candidate that they believe will do a good job in whatever office it is. But as Congressman Knight says, if you don't do it judiciously, if you endorse people who aren't qualified for the job, if you are looking out only for cronies and you aren't actually advancing the needs of the community, then people at the next election will have the opportunity to let you know. And so I think it is the representative's responsibility as a leader in the community to exercise endorsements with the best judgment that they have and leave it up to the community to decide whether they exercise their judgment well.
Thank you. Krista?
Do you believe that climate change is proven science? If so, what can be done about it?
And we'll start with you, Steve.
Yeah, I guess I'm one of those weird Republicans that I do believe that we're in a cycle. I absolutely believe that we're in a cycle, and that is part of what's happening. But you cannot say that the pollutants that we put in the air don't have an effect on the environment. There is an effect on the environment. I think that scientists have shown that. I think that we've got enough information. But as we go down the climate change situation, what is happening in America is a lot of people think that climate change means right here in America, we've got to invest all of our money on climate change, and nobody else has to do anything. Even with the latest discussions with many other countries, there was a provision set in there that said if you can't afford it, you don't have to do it. So if we are going to look into these issues, and if we are going to have some sort of money being paid out through the federal government, then let's do it at the global level. And let's have everybody involved, because right now what America is doing is putting ourselves at a competitive disadvantage.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, climate change is real. The science really isn't in question, and we need a representative in Congress who will look at the evidence, look at science, and make decisions based on that. That's why it was so frustrating what happened with the Porter Ranch gas leak, not just for the human impact of people getting sick, people having to be relocated, but the climate change effects of so much methane gas being released, pushing California, all the progress we've made over the last few years backwards. And that's why I proposed a piece of federal legislation that would put strong safeguards in place to prevent against this kind of methane gas leak happening in the future. Unfortunately, some members of Congress are proposing leaving up regulations of storage facilities to the best consensus industry standards. That's the standards that the oil companies put forward, the same standards that allow them not to have safety valves, to do dual tubing, injecting and extracting of methane gas, which put us all at risk, including at the Honor Rancho facility right in the heart of Valencia.
Lou?
Yes, I believe in climate change, just like 97% of climate scientists. I think that's a pretty good number to go with there. We need to get, I've said it before and in this debate, and I'll say it again, we need to focus on renewable energy. The federal government can give tax breaks and incentives for doing that. We need to get away from carbon-based fuels and fossil fuels. I mean, we need to follow California's example. I think the last coal-fired power plant will be shuttered in California in 2020. And we need to do that not only nationwide, but one thing America is a leader, and we need to set the example for the rest of the world. We can't just not do it because other people aren't doing it. We have to have the courage and the forethought and the foresight to do it first and do it now.
Thank you all. Jana?
Would you reduce Medicare, Social Security, or other entitlement programs to reduce the federal deficit?
And Brian, we'll start with you.
Absolutely not. Congressman Knight stated that he's not a fan of Social Security. I am. I've seen firsthand how important Social Security is to my grandparents, to allow them to live out their years with dignity and with pride. And I will fight every day in Congress to make sure we don't cut benefits, we don't increase the retirement age, and we sure as heck will not give a windfall to Wall Street speculators on the backs of our seniors. This is a sacred promise that we must keep for the seniors who have worked so hard over their lives, who have paid into these systems, to make sure that we do not take that away from them, but we strengthen and secure these programs.
Steve?
Absolutely, I think that absolutely not. I think that Social Security was a bad idea. I do. I absolutely think it was a bad idea. I think that what should have happened was we should have had the government sit down with the private sector and build a system that people could take with them. That didn't happen. Here we are 75 years later. But if we follow this, we don't raise the age limit, if we don't do anything to Social Security, in 2030 you're going to have a congressman sitting right here going, we don't have any money. Not for Social Security. We don't have any money. Right now it's 69% of mandatory spending goes to Social Security, Medicare, and payment on the debt. That is rising dramatically. It will be 90% in our lifetime, not our children. We're not giving this to our children. It's our lifetime. You have to make some change to Social Security, just like life insurance. That changes every generation because you know what? I'm going to live longer than my father's generation, and my son's generation is going to live a little longer than me. So you have to change those tables. If you don't, we run out.
Is there anything that would prevent you from building a program like that now while Social Security is still in existence, a private sector
No, I
program?
think that we should absolutely do that. President Bush said that, back in about 2010, 2011. I think that he almost got thrown out of office for even talking about it. If we can do it right now, nobody gets changed from about 55 years and older. Nothing changes. But under 55, something's got to change. I'll give you an example. I've only worked 14 years in my life that I pay into Social Security. Just like Lou, when we're in LAPD, we're not paying into Social Security. So 14 years, I am fully vested. 14 years and I am fully vested. At 67, I am going to get money from Social Security. There's got to be a change with the people that are under 55. Because if you don't, then someday we're going to be sitting here going, everyone's got to change. And I don't want to get to that point. I'd rather fix it now when we have a chance to do that. 69% mandatory spending goes to those three issues.
Lou?
It's only rising.
Lou, you're next.
Okay, I support expanding and protecting Social Security. And just to tweak your question a little bit, if I can take a little liberty, I don't consider them entitlements. They're earned benefits. Those are benefits and money that people worked hard and paid into, and they were promised that they were going to get that money back, and we need to keep our promises to our seniors. Secondly, we need to lift the payroll cap on Social Security. $117,000 makes the same amount of payment as someone that makes $600,000, and that's just not fair. I could explain that to my kids and they tell me right away that's not fair. So I think that's something that needs to be lifted, the payroll cap. And the last thing is we need to stop corporate tax loopholes that can help fund, that money can help fund Social Security instead of those corporations taking advantage of the tax loopholes, moving their money overseas, and really it's impacting our seniors. So no, I would not touch Social Security.
Brian, you have anything more to say since they have a little more time?
I
You don't have to.
I stand by my position. I agree with Lou that we should get rid of the payroll limit. We should make changes to Social Security to strengthen and secure it, not to cut those benefits from the people who have worked their entire lives and paid in the system to earn them.
All right. Before we go to the final, I think they all deserve a round of applause for their answer. You each were very responsive. You did an excellent job of representing yourselves and your positions, and we really appreciate it. Your questions were brilliant. I mean, you all must be journalists. So now it's the time for the closing statements. You each get 3 minutes. The timekeeper will tell you, and when it says stop, please stop. And we're going to go in reverse order. Lou is first.
Okay, well, thanks again. Thank you to the panel. Those were wonderful questions. The thing that I want to communicate to you tonight, and I'm speaking specifically to the Democrats out there, but also to the Republicans, is that I have been a member of this community. I've worked here. I've worked on issues affecting this community. I understand this community. My kids go to school in Santa Clarita. My parents live in Palmdale. I've been to countless sporting events, community events, you name it. I've been here. I understand the struggles that go on with everybody commuting to and from the Santa Clarita Valley, to the San Fernando Valley, and so forth. I understand their concerns about raising your family and the water and being able to make ends meet and paying for college. Those are things that are important to me. So what I want to leave you with tonight is that I want to go to Washington and I want to represent you. It's not about me. I'm not doing this for personal gain. I'm not doing this to increase my career saleability. I'm doing this for the right reasons, to make sure that I take care of the people that are really my neighbors, my family, and I look forward to June 7th, and I hope to have your vote. And after June 7th, I look forward to another debate here with this wonderful panel with Congressman Knight. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Signal. Thank you to the panel. This was a very good debate. It was a spirited debate, but it talked about the differences in issues, the differences in how we are going to address the issues. And look, there are people that want to be a congressman, and there are people that want to get things done. I know I'm the person that wants to get things done. I didn't choose to go somewhere and find a place to do this. This is where I live. I've lived in this district for 31 years. I've lived in Santa Clarita Valley. I've lived in Palmdale. I've lived in Lancaster. 31 years. I was born in Southern California, right on Edwards Air Force Base. So my total here is about 38 years right here in Southern California. I understand the issues because they've affected me. I had to commute from Palmdale into Hollywood Division, into Devonshire Division, into North Hollywood Division, 17 years. I had to commute before the earthquake and after the earthquake. And I could see what that changed. What changed in that commute? I also had to deal with the crime issues that happen up here, had to deal with the gang issues. This was my backyard, dealing with the deputies up here, dealing with the deputies in the Antelope Valley. We had to work on the issues right here that affect us. So I think that you've got the commitment from me. I don't want to be just the congressman. I want to do something. You've heard of the accomplishments that we've done. That's because we hit the ground running. You can talk to many other freshman congressmen, and they will never tell you about something that was signed by President Obama if they are a Republican. We've already done that. We're going to do that about 3 or 4 times this summer. We work across the aisle. We've proven that. We have a record that shows that. And our commitment as a family. My wife has chosen to be a nurse here in the district. My children, well, they didn't choose, but we chose for them to go to school here in the district. My 2 children and my wife graduated from Quartz Hill High School. That's their only character flaw. I graduated from Palmdale High School. We know this very well. I was a Palmdale City Councilman. I graduated from Antelope Valley College. This is my home. I've chosen to be here, and I've chosen to work on the issues that affect my friends, my family, and this district. So I would be honored to continue to work on the issues that affect this district. I would be honored to work on the issues that come up on a daily basis and the long-term issues like aerospace, like jobs, like crime, like roads, but also the emergency issues that we had to deal with Aliso Canyon, where we helped out over 300 families on relocating, on getting their reimbursements, and on getting their air filters. So we know how to do that. We do it very quickly, we do it judiciously, and we do it because it's an honor to serve. Thank you very much.
Brian.
Thank you to the Signal, thank you to the panelists, and thank you for everyone for coming today. These are important. These give the candidates the opportunity to speak directly to you, to answer your questions, and to see who best aligns with your views before June and before November. And today we saw some very stark differences between Congressman Knight's votes and positions and my values and the community's values. Now, Social Security, we just talked about it. He is not a fan of it. He doesn't think we ever should have had it. I do. This is a sacred promise that we have made to our seniors. And I will fight every day in Congress against Republican efforts to take away that sacred promise. Now, one thing we didn't talk about was women's health and Planned Parenthood. Congressman Knight has voted repeatedly to defund Planned Parenthood. I stand proudly with Planned Parenthood, an organization that provides essential healthcare services to thousands of women every year in this community. I had the pleasure to tour the Antelope Valley Planned Parenthood facility and see what they do to serve 13,000 different patients just last year with essential health care, with cancer screenings, with more access to birth control, with more women's health exams to keep our community members safe and healthy. I will never allow Republican extremists to defund Planned Parenthood while I'm in Congress. On immigration, Congressman Knight has said he has no problem deporting the parents of American citizens. I do. That's wrong for the people in our community. We need to fight for families. We need to fight for the families here at home instead of trying to break them apart and hold back our economy at the same time. And finally, on gun safety measures, Congressman Knight has voted time and time again to allow potentially suspected terrorists to purchase firearms, putting our communities and our families at risk. I will stand against that, and I will make sure we do everything in our power to keep our communities safe. Thank you so much for everybody for coming. This has been a great debate, and I hope to earn your support in June and November.
Thank you. The Signal wants to thank all of you for coming and for your kind attention. We also want to say this. We at the Signal are committed to the Santa Clarita Valley. We want your readership. We want you to subscribe. Those of you who have businesses, we need your support in advertising because your community newspaper is vital to our success as a democracy. We need your help. You care about a democracy or you wouldn't be here. So help the Signal continue, and thank you very much for being here.